Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, we'll talk to Congressman David Schweikert about President Trump's new deportation orders and more. And state legislative leaders will be here for our weekly legislative update. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. Republican Congressman David Schweikert is serving his third term on Capitol Hill. Schweikert represents Arizona's 6th congressional district, which covers much of North Phoenix, Scottsdale, and Fountain Hills. We welcome Representative Schweikert to Arizona Horizon. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
What is the mood right now in Washington?
Can I use the word intense?
Yes.
And it's more than just the change of the White House. There's a sense saying, oh, dear heaven, we have the chance to do tax reform. We need to keep our promises in regards to the ACA. There's finally a chance to do a lot of the other policy sets that were frozen before. And so even the work schedules have changed dramatically. With my new committee assignment, it's not uncommon to have, 6-day weeks with just piles and piles of things that must be read. And I think that's fairly common. And it wasn't like that last year.
President Trump's first month in office, your thoughts?
Number of rough edges. I think actually for some of the folks that are first time in Washington need to understand how rough and tumble it is, that you're not allowed to make a spelling mistake or punctuation mistake. Everything will be criticized. And you need to just build some thick skin and focus on what's actual policy, because if you react to noise, you spend your life reacting.
Too much reacting right now?
There's a lot of silliness. Some things that are genuine policy that are worthy of a debate, and other things that are just make-believe, but different groups raise money on it. It occupies cable television time. And when you actually take a step backwards, and I've had this experience where I've been in a meeting, and that evening I'm watching the cable television news shows, and what's being reported never happened in that meeting. And I don't know how you deal with that sort of ecosystem when it's that hyperbolic.
Is that a problem of leaks? Is that a problem?
No.
What's the problem there?
I think it's actually people sort of imputing, imprinting their greatest fears on everything. And there's actually an entire political infrastructure based in DC, mostly about raising money and mostly about ginning up your base, that I think actually helps create a lot of noise that when you peel it back saying, but that wasn't true. There's a real issue over here, we could talk about that, but because it's not as sexy, we end up focusing on the noise, and it makes it really hard sometimes to have honest policy debates, even policy discussions, when there's shiny objects being hoisted up every day.
Above and below the noise, are you satisfied with the decisions President Trump has made?
More complicated. A good example is there's a couple appointments. He appointed someone to OMB director that I'm very close to, who I consider, a gentleman named Mick Mulvaney, I consider to be just brilliant. That meant a lot to me because it helped me know there would be someone in probably one of the most powerful positions in Washington that people don't even know exists, that's smart and is thoughtful. But other things, look, I'm part of those Republicans who think the president should issue his tax return. Deal with some of these things that create sort of that hyperbolic noise again and become distractions on actually getting to policy.
As far as immigration orders, that's a decision that was just made here this week.
Mm-hmm.
And the crackdown on immigration enforcement, critics are saying could lead to racial profiling, it could lead to community trust being broken, hurts families, the whole 9 yards. How do you see this?
Yeah, I wish there was a little more intellectual consistency on this, because even a couple of the criticism I read this morning were from people that just 6 weeks ago were saying you need to focus on criminal illegal aliens, folks of this definition, this policy. And substantially, my understanding is that the draft order, that's what's being done. And all of a sudden, the threshold for criticism jumps. So do you hold some of those folks who are sort of the professional critics in regards to immigration to their words from last December, saying, yes, you need to go after, the 900,000 or whatever the actual numbers are of those who have felony convictions, and we'll deal with the others later. When that happens, it's still criticized.
Yet people are criticizing this because it seems to go beyond the serious serial criminal. It's going to folks like the mother in Mesa, who basically was reporting in regularly and was not doing anything other than, and she did use false ID. I mean, she had 2 separate accounts there. So that was a felony.
And what's important on that one, and I don't know all the details, but I did get a briefing from some of my staff. And my understanding is this is someone that had the opportunity to use almost 2 years of sort of administrative appeals, had legal counsel, had actually worked through the process. And this is the process that did not just appear the day Donald Trump became president. So if there's a problem on, hey, a felony conviction, you have these appeal processes, at some point the appeal processes come to an end. Or is the criticism that we want the appeal process to have a never-ending life? At some point, I just need some, rationality saying, do you want a different status of felony? I mean, is that the argument?
I think people are concerned because they see families broken apart.
Yeah.
They see this woman with 2 U.S. citizens. Their kids are U.S. citizens now, and she's now having to stay in Mexico until she comes. I think what they're saying is, you can be intellectually consistent all you want, but hearts are being broken and families are being broken.
And there's no way some of this isn't going to be difficult. And from my view of the world, I desperately wish, as some of the enforcement was being stepped up, we were stepping up and saying, okay, here's what the future model should look like. I am very fixated on an immigration model that maximizes talent for economic growth. And I think actually some of this would be easier to deal with, the ultimate path for dreamers. If we were also saying, and here's what the future of a modern immigration system with technology. Remember, as you and I have talked about, when 46% of your undocumented population came through a legal visa process, why aren't we using technology as a solution there? And so I have noise and I need more policy.
There's noise and there is legitimate concern over the president's relationship with Russia. And there was a push to have an outside probe of those connections. I believe you voted against that outside probe. Why?
I actually don't know that vote. So you'd have to come back to me. I can give you, we did have a vote in the Ways and Means Committee. Should the Ways and Means chairman, who has special authority to see someone's tax returns, a law that's been around a very long time, and it's only been used a couple times, but it's typically been used when defending someone or a group that claims they're being abused by the IRS. And remember, I actually believe the president should release his tax returns as tradition. But you can go online right now and see page after page after page of his personal financial disclosures, which will show where there are conflicts. But I voted against that because are you prepared to weaponize the power of the majority to pull someone's tax returns? So if 3 weeks from now there's a rumor that George Soros has engaged in something that's dodgy, do we grab his tax returns and look at? So you got to be very careful on some of these governmental policies of if you weaponize it, are you prepared where it's going to go?
I think the concern, though, is that George Soros isn't president of the United States. And back to my original question, are you concerned about those connections?
You're absolutely, you're concerned, and please listen, I'm one of those who supports the sanctions on Russia. So I'm on that side that I believe Russia is a bad actor internationally. But I also look at the whole sort of hyperbolic noise and saying, okay, I understand there's a fixation on many of my friends from the left because internal emails were leaked during the campaign that actually made the DNC and others look rather bad in how they were treating their constituencies. And they still are looking for someone to blame. Is this an actual concern, or is this more of desperately trying to find a scapegoat for losing the election?
But wouldn't it be just easier to go ahead and get the answer instead of worrying about whether or not it's noise?
Trust me, as I see Congress and its nature, nothing eventually goes uninvestigated. You also have to be chasing something. It at least has some nuggets of information that's real.
Do you think there are no nuggets of information?
Most of what has been presented in our office, when you actually do the first layer of looking at it, saying, oh, it's a shiny object, but there's nothing underneath it.
Do you think there's nothing underneath questions regarding the integrity of the U.S. intelligence agencies? The president has questioned whether or not these people are doing proper things. I mean, he's almost at war with the CIA and the FBI.
And that one has actually really surprised me because on one level, many of us were very disappointed to see a lack of faith in the U.S. intelligence infrastructure. But then we also see an incident a couple of last week where it may have been the U.S. information intelligence structure that may have actually leaked. So you're sort of getting it from both directions. Tremendous respect for the talents of our spy agencies. And on the flip side, now we're seeing published stories that it may have been those very agencies that leaked information about internal phone calls.
Would that justify questioning the integrity of intelligence?
Absolutely not. And this is always when you have 60 plus or whatever the number, 1,000 employees, if you have one or two that violate the rules, you don't disparage the entire bureaucracy. You find the bad actors and find the ones that provide you quality information and operate from that.
Real quickly, some folks see Steve Bannon as a bad actor. There's a lot of concern about him as well, being that close to the president. I think a former NSC spokesman said that Bannon was a media champion of white nationalism. Again, I know you'd think of that as noise.
Yeah.
It's noise, but people are hearing the noise and they're worried about that noise. Are you worried about Steve Bannon that close in the White House?
My concern was more, you want top tier talent that understands the complexities of the United States and our position in the world. And I don't know if Mr. Bannon fits that bill. But I also find a certain irony of sort of almost the boogeyman syndrome of let's hold up the straw man. We have someone we passionately disagree with, and he's the boogeyman, and so that must be the center of all evil. And think about the amount of noise that seems directed at one person in the White House instead of the actual focus on what's actually starting to move in policy and where we're going to be also heading in things like the tax reform and the ACA, the really big issues that are coming.
And last question here, and I'd love to have more time to talk about some of those issues, but everything we've talked about today are things that a lot of folks want to talk to you about. This whole town hall business where no one does a town hall anymore. Is that because you're not doing a town? Are you doing a town hall?
Oh, we've done the teletown halls, and we've done
the regular town halls, though, where you meet people in person.
Well, the problem is, you can actually meet with lots of people and do policy, which is what we're doing. I think I will have over 40 individual and small group meetings in this single week. So today I will do everything from a chamber event to a couple small group events in Scottsdale to we did a series of meetings over at SkySong. And the beauty of that is many of them are to the left, to the right, libertarian, but you're doing policy. Or do you do a large group event, which is theater, where you'll have a handful of folks who will dress up and scream and shout down the others. And look, in a weird way, I actually sort of enjoy those, but when you walk away, no good really came from it.
When you walk away, though, and this is my last question here, whether you walk in, whether you walk out, I hear it all the time. Lots of folks are hearing it all the time. People are worried.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
concerned. They don't think the person in the White House is up to the job, or at extreme levels, they don't think he's mentally competent for the job. Whether or not that's true, the perception is out there. What do you tell those people?
My thought to that is create a wider distribution of your news sources. I met with a very liberal couple early this morning in Scottsdale, and when we talked about it, their entire series of news sources were functionally 3 very, very liberal providers, and that's their view of the world. And you ask them, do you watch Horizon? Do you listen to Bloomberg or CNBC or other, that if you have a concentration of ideology being shoved into your news digestion, I think it actually almost becomes toxic. And just as I will try to absorb everything, I'll beg of those folks who have the most angst, spread out what you're receiving informationally and understand it's more complicated.
It's good to see you. Thanks for
I
joining
always enjoy
us.
it.
We appreciate it. This is Arizona Horizon. Stay tuned for an update on activity at the state capitol in our weekly legislative update. That's next.
Get the inside scoop on what's happening at Arizona PBS. Become an insider. You'll receive weekly updates on the most anticipated upcoming programs and events. Get the insider delivered to your email inbox. Visit azpbs.org to sign up today.
Each week we get an update from the state capitol by way of legislative leaders. We rotate between Democrats and Republicans, and this week it's the Republicans' turn. Joining us now, Senate President Steve Yarborough and Speaker of the House, J.D. Mesnard. Good to have you both here. Thanks for joining us. Let's start with this idea that I know in the Senate it was voted down. House, you still got it here. The idea of banning municipalities from issuing their own ideas. What's going on here?
That was Senator Kavanaugh's bill to prohibit using a city-issued non-government quality ID for folks to do various things. His perspective was that it was an appropriate measure to guard against identity theft and to provide a mechanism for people to have appropriate identification. Didn't get the votes.
How come?
I think that there were several folks who perceived it as being somehow an anti-illegal immigrant measure, despite Senator Kavanaugh's best efforts to communicate that that was not the purpose.
Over in the House, a similar bill, this one, I believe you would lose state shared revenue if your municipality got caught doing this. Again, why is this necessary? Is this a good idea?
Yeah, it's along the lines of what the Senate President said. In the House version, Mr. Lawrence's version, it goes a little bit further than Senator Kavanaugh's does. It is about identity theft. It's about the idea that this is a state function, and when you have various IDs floating around, it can cause confusion out there. And so this bill, I think Phoenix has done this or talked about going down this road, and it just really isn't appropriate.
The idea of a secondary ID, though, for everything from library cards to service identification, these sorts of things, the city says this helps people.
Certainly, and those were excluded. So we made some exceptions, library cards, senior center types of cards. So it wasn't just an across-the-board bus transit cards. Those sorts of things were excluded. This was really about sort of an alternate form of ID that's above that type of card you'd have for like the library.
Have there been problems with people trying to use these kinds of IDs to get to services they may not qualify for?
I think there's concern that could happen. I haven't heard of it being a rampant problem, but sometimes we pass things preemptively because we're concerned. You don't want to find out at a later date, wow, this was a disaster, and now you try to put the genie back in the bottle.
Last point on this, cities are saying this is a municipal responsibility. This is something we should be able to decide as opposed to the state. Do they have a point?
Well, I think they have a point to the extent that cities should still be able to issue library cards and bus cards and those of that nature. But I think the question is whether those cards would meet the standard of a true government ID. And I think that was the sponsor's main point.
Another bill in the House, continuing resolution regarding initiative signature gatherers. We have yet another one here now, and this is from Representative Shooter. You have to get 10% of voters in each legislative district in order to qualify.
Yeah, that's his proposal, and it's a referendum, so it would have to go to the ballot. The voters would have to approve it. Basically, it's amending the process now to say that his idea, and so I'm speaking for him here, but based on my understanding is he wants to make sure that it isn't just one county that's sort of dominating the conversation, where 13 or 14 out of 15 counties might want something, but one county can stop it, or vice versa. So he's trying to create, spreading it out among the 30 legislative districts, 10% from each of them.
How do you do this without a small minority, without the other side, as you say, a small minority controlling the will of the people?
Well, it's just to qualify for the ballot. It's not about passing something. This is just to say that if you're going to get something on the ballot, it's not just going to come from one place in the state. It's really coming from all around the state, all 30 districts, which means that half the districts are in Maricopa County, so you're still going to have extra weight with Maricopa, but it's a little more spread out and can't come entirely from Maricopa or entirely from urban parts of the state.
Does that sound like a good idea to you?
I think it does have merit. I don't know whether we'll see the bill. And then, of course, as the Speaker indicated, it's still going to have to go to the voters. But I think that these ideas do have merit because there is a fairly high degree of frustration with the impact of very powerful out-of-state moneyed interests coming in and basically abusing the initiative process.
But doesn't seem the same kind of a concern regarding these out-of-state interests getting involved in legislative, in state races, in congressional races. I mean, they're all over the place, aren't they?
Well, they probably are. Obviously, at our level, we don't see too many of those in the state, legislative races, but certainly in statewide races, yes, you are correct.
Why don't we hear this concern regarding some of those races?
Some people do make the concern, but there is a pretty distinct and important difference. When you go right to the ballot with a measure, a proposal, it's bypassing a serious vetting that happens. So even if you want to make the claim that certain legislators are bought or there's certain special interests, the legislative process is quite involved and usually vets issues pretty well. I mean, there's been times I've supported an issue, found out more information, and said, I changed my mind, or vice versa. And that the ballot measure at the voting booth doesn't quite involve the same vetting.
Yet at the heart, I know people are hearing you don't trust the voters.
Yeah, it's not about trust, it's about information. I mean, we have stacks of information that we use to try to make the best decision we can. And as I indicated before, as we get more information, our votes might change. And so it's not at all an insult or meant to be an insult to the voters. It's just that lawmaking is an involved process. That's why we have a dedicated branch of the government to do it. And if you're going to bypass that process, it better be a really big deal, and it probably shouldn't be driven by out-of-state special interests.
Speaking of the process, a lot of folks showed up at the Capitol this week complaining about the process regarding education funding and especially appropriations funding. They want to get more transparency. They want to be heard more. A couple hundred people showed up at the Capitol today, not today, but this week to protest this. Yep. Again, your thoughts?
I think it's a great idea. And I think the more people that are engaged in this process, the more people who come down there and talk to us and who participate and communicate with us in a variety of ways, I just think that's positive. And the Speaker has been doing some significant things to try to even expand the process.
Those that showed up this week, though, were complaining about the fact that education funding, they supported Prop 123. They feel like they're being used. They supported Prop 123, waiting for the next step, and the next step was not much of a step.
Well, the next step is moderately significant. I think $114 million or something in new funding, in addition to the over $300 million that Prop 123 is going to bring annually into the process. And so it's a big deal, I think. Is it ever as big as we would like it to be? No, I guess not, unless we have more revenue.
What do you think about these protests at the Capitol this week and what they were protesting and demonstrating about?
Yeah, and they dropped off a number of postcards, and I have them, and I'm trying to go through as many of them as I can, outlining that education is a priority. My initial reaction is I agree, education is a priority, and I also, when asked about the transparency of the process, have these folks spoken at the subcommittee hearings in the House? We've had multiple education subcommittee hearings for this very opportunity, and then of course we'll transition to the broader Appropriations Committee itself. I fully intend to have, and I believe the President feels the same, a transparent, open process for the public to weigh in.
Are they getting enough time when they do show up to speak?
Well, I think it's been about 4 or 5 weeks worth of them, and I haven't heard, especially at the subcommittee process, any complaints about time. Certainly with other deadlines and hearing bills and other situations, that complaint comes up, but not with regard to the appropriations process.
Before we go, there's a Senate continuing resolution regarding terms. You guys want 4 years now instead of 2?
I do indeed. I'm the sponsor of that measure, and I hope that it will proceed and eventually go to the voters for consideration. It would make 4-year terms for senators, 2-year terms for House members. 32 states have that system. Only about 12 have the current 2 and 2 that we have. I just think that senators ought to spend more time representing and less time running, and this is my way to try to make that happen.
I just have time for a yay or nay. What do you think?
I agree. I
You agree?
co-sponsored it with him. Yeah.
Okay, I guess you did. Okay. Good to have you both here. Thanks
to
for
be with you.
joining us.
You're good.
Thursday on Arizona Horizon, world-renowned physicist Lawrence Krauss talks about some interesting planets discovered around a nearby star, and we'll take a look at some up-and-coming talent from the Black Theater Troupe. That's at 5:30 and 10 on the next Arizona Horizon. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.